All right. Good morning, everyone. So the goal today is to prove Brooks theorem, right? So let me just write down the statement again on the next page. Let's see. Okay. So it's theorem 14.4 in the text. Right. So we have a connected, and of course, all graphs are loopless in this module. Then the theorem says that if the graph G is not a complete graph or an odd cycle, okay, then the chromatic number of the graph is actually at most the maximum degree of the graph. Whereas in the case of complete graphs and odd cycles, we actually need delta G plus 1 colors. But they are the only graphs that require that many colors as per Brooks theorem. Okay. All right. So as we discussed yesterday, the plan to prove this theorem is by showing the existence of a special kind of spanning tree, right? And we will show that all graphs, except for complete graphs and cycles, and that's basically the main plan. We will show that there is this kind of special spanning tree. Okay. We will deal with two connected graphs and graphs that are not two connected somewhat separately, but that's not a very crucial detail. Let's come to that later. Okay. So what kind of what special properties does our spanning tree need? Okay. So let's think about this greedy heuristic, right? So what are we doing? In our spanning tree discussion yesterday, we took a spanning tree of our connected graph, right? Something like this. And we started removing leaves, right? We remove one leaf, we remove another leaf, yet another leaf. At each point, we are choosing a leaf from the remaining tree, from the remaining spanning tree of that subgraph, right? So we construct some ordering of the vertices, and the last vertex we remove, you can think of that as the root of the spanning tree. Right? The root is really a concept for the sake of visualization. Okay, so you just keep removing leaves, and whatever the last vertex you remove, you think of it as your root of the spanning tree. Okay, there is nothing special about the root except that it is the last vertex to be removed. Okay, and now you can get a coloring of your graph by considering this ordering of the vertices. So the last vertex is the root vertex. Okay, let me just call them V1, V2, V3, V4. Okay, and now you can get a coloring of your graph. For each vertex, you give a color that is not used by its neighbor. You give the smallest color that is not used by its neighbors. Right? And what we observed is that until this point, if you construct this kind of ordering from a spanning tree by removing leaves, you will never require more than delta colors. It is only this last vertex where what could happen is all the neighbors have been colored differently and it has exactly delta neighbors. And when that happens, you have to use the last extra color delta plus 1, right? But until this point, Vn, such a situation would not arise because every vertex would have some neighbor which is not colored, which would be a neighbor in the spanning tree, right?
Sir, I have one question regarding
Yeah,
this. So each of the vertices from V1 to Vn minus 1, they are
Mm,
getting colors from 1 to delta.
that's right.
The problem may arise in case of only the last vertex, which is Vn.
That's right. Exactly.
So basically Vn may get delta plus 1th color, may get.
Naked, yeah.
And the
And
only
the
possibility and the only case where Vn will get delta plus 1th color, must get delta plus 1th color, will
mm,
be that all the degree of Vn is exactly delta,
yes,
and all the delta neighbors of Vn are
mm,
colored differently.
exactly.
So no, but I have an alternative way. So what can we do instead
Mm,
of, so if we insist the fact that Vn is not a maximum degree vertex
mm,
in the graph G,
mm.
then degree of Vn will be strictly less than delta.
Good, good. So what does that mean? So for certain kinds of graphs, you have already proved Brooks theorem. What is that class of graphs?
I think that is not complete graph because in a complete graph there always exists a vertex whose degree is less than the maximum degree.
In not complete
No, no,
graphs or
no, no,
what?
no. I mean, complete graph is a graph where there does not exist a vertex whose degree
Right.
is less than,
Okay. Sure. But
and
are
also
complete
an
graphs
odd
the only
cycle.
such graphs?
Yeah.
Are complete graphs the only such graphs?
No, it can be or odd cycle also.
Why can it not be an even cycle?
Because for even cycle we know simply that chi of g equal to 2 and big delta of g equal to 2.
Sure, but
We
even
have
in an
already
even
done.
cycle, yeah, sure. But even in an even cycle, every vertex has degree delta, right? So what
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
trying to say is there is a more general class of graphs. It's not just complete graphs and odd cycles. What you are saying applies to a more general class of graphs,
Yeah, means the graphs in which there exists a vertex whose degree is less than the maximum degree.
right? And what are those graphs?
Regular graphs, maybe.
Not regular graphs, you mean, right? So for all graphs that are not regular, you are actually done,
Exactly, sir. Exactly, yeah.
right?
Because regular means there cannot exist a vertex,
Exactly.
and being not
So,
regular means there will exist a vertex.
right. So Brooks theorem is actually
Basically,
easy to
I
prove.
will
Yeah.
construct a spanning tree and I will make such a vertex
Yeah,
as
yeah,
my
yeah.
root.
So
As my
Brooks
root.
theorem is actually easily proved for not regular graphs. So you can easily prove it for graphs. Let me just call them non-regular graphs, right? So they are graphs that are not regular. So because the graph is not regular, there is some vertex such that the degree of this vertex is strictly less than the maximum degree, right? So you consider a spanning tree rooted at this vertex. So you take any spanning tree and you think of this vertex as your root vertex, right? Whatever. Now you construct the ordering by removing leaves, and the last vertex you remove will be the vertex V. Okay? So when you come to this vertex, you know that its degree is not delta, which means its neighbors can receive at most delta minus 1 colors because it has at most um, delta minus 1 neighbors, right? So you will always have one color remaining for this vertex. So the degree is going to be, the number of neighbors is going to be strictly less than delta. So we have a color for V in the first delta colors itself. We never need to go to the delta plus 1 color. Okay? So what we have done is we have actually proved the theorem for graphs that are not regular. Okay? Good. Are there any questions or concerns regarding this? Is everybody convinced that we only need to care about regular graphs? For non-regular graphs, it's already easily proved. Actually, the proof we will be seeing will deal with regular graphs also, because we won't be using certain properties. But anyways, we'll come to that later. For now, notice that we have proved Brooks theorem for graphs that are not regular.
So basically, it suffices to prove Brooks theorem for regular graphs.
That's right. That's right.
I mean, regular graphs other than complete graphs and odd cycles.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Okay. Good. So now I want to use this to make another observation. We can also prove Brooks theorem for graphs that are not too connected. So now let's consider proving Brooks theorem for graphs that are not too connected. Okay. And what we will do is we will make use of the fact that we already can prove Brooks theorem for graphs that are not regular. Okay. So we will use the non-regular case here. Okay. So let's suppose we have a graph. So let's say G is because we have already done non-regular graphs, let me consider a regular graph that is not too connected. Okay. So what does that mean? It means it has a cut vertex. There is some cut vertex here, right? G is equal to G1 union G2, where the vertices of, in fact, the intersection of G1 and G2 as subgraphs is exactly one vertex. Okay. So can anybody tell me how will we get a delta coloring of this graph using the fact that the given graph is regular and we know how to deal with non-regular graphs?
Well, G1 and G2 are independently not regular, right?
Exactly, exactly. Notice that G1 and G2 are not regular. Okay, so go ahead.
And then I can color G1 and G2 using at most delta colors.
Exactly. So GI has a proper delta GI coloring. By coloring, I mean vertex coloring, of course. Okay,
And chi of G is basically equal to the maximum of chi of G1 and chi of G2.
that's right. Exactly. How would you do that? What is the
Because
argument for
V is the only common vertex, sorry, X is the only common vertex between G1 and G2.
right?
So
Exactly.
if I, yeah, like,
Right. V is the only common vertex. So we can make sure that we consider colorings of G1 and G2 where V gets the same color, right? For example, if V gets a red color in one of them,
So I think this part can be easily done. Means
yeah, so if V gets blue color in the other one, then you would just swap the blue and red colors in this coloring, and now V is red colored in both of them, right? So by swapping colors, we ensure that color of V in G1, so we are considering a coloring of each of them. Color of V in G1 is equal to color of V in G2, right? So, and so now we can combine these two colorings because V is the only common vertex, and we'll get a coloring of the whole graph, which uses at most delta G colors. So we combine these colorings to get a proper delta G coloring of the whole graph G. Okay, so that settles the proof for graphs that are not too connected. So what have we done? we first proved it for graphs that are not regular. We use this to prove Brooks theorem for graphs that are not too connected. So the only case that remains now, so what remains is proving Brooks theorem for two connected regular graphs. Sorry, yeah, two connected regular graphs. That's right. Okay. What we will do is we will actually forget about regular now. Turns out we have a strategy that works for all two connected graphs using spanning trees. Okay. So we will omit this condition. We will just
So
prove it for
I
all
have
two
just a
connected.
remark regarding the previous proof. So in the previous proof, the G1 needs delta G1 color,
Right.
proper delta G1 coloring, G1 and G2 has a proper delta G2 coloring. So can we say that I mean G will have a proper of max of del G1 del G2 coloring?
Yeah.
Because
That's it. Yeah. Mhm.
okay, means
Yeah.
so basically we are essentially swapping the color at the vertex B. That's why.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so you
Okay.
can take the max, but what we wanted is at most delta G, so I
Yeah,
just
yeah.
put the bound.
Bound. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, sir. Okay, sir, fine.
Okay, good. So we will devise a strategy for proving Brooks theorem for all two connected graphs, right? Including the regular ones, although we have already proved it for, um, yeah, we have already proved it for non-regular graphs, but we will omit this condition that the graph is regular. Okay, and the proof we will do is due to Lowas. I think it is one of the earliest results Lowas proved in his career. One of the most prominent graph theorists, contemporary prominent graph theorists. All right. So now I wanted to go back to this whole idea about spanning tree. So, what special properties does our spanning tree require? This is relevant for the two connected case. Okay. So, can anybody think of some special properties of the spanning tree that would help us? Right. What we want to do is when we get to the root vertex, we want to make sure that all the delta colors have not been used by its neighbors. Right. Somehow we want to guarantee that all delta colors are not used by the neighbors. Somehow we want to guarantee that when we consider the root vertex, all delta colors have not been used by its neighbors. Right? Because the graph could be regular, we can't say that it should have less than delta neighbors. I mean, that we already know we are done, right? So it could actually have delta neighbors. It could be a regular graph, but we still want to make sure that all the delta colors are not used by the neighbors. Okay?
So basically, even if the root vertex is delta neighbors, means at least two of its neighbors will get the same color.
Exactly. We want two neighbors of the root vertex to have at least two neighbors to have the same color. Right? We want to make sure that at least two vertices among the neighbors of the root have the same color. Okay. Well, how can they have the same color? Clearly, they cannot be adjacent to each other, right? If they are adjacent, they can't get the same color. Okay. So we need the root to have two vertices, neighbors, that are not adjacent with each other. Okay. So we need the root to have at least two neighbors that are non-adjacent.
But sir, I have a question.
Hmm.
So means being adjacent means they are getting different color, but being
They have to,
non-adjacent,
right. Being adjacent means they have to get different colors.
they have to get different color. That I agree. But being non-adjacent, it doesn't mean they will get definitely same color.
Right. Sure. So we need something more, right? We need to ensure that on top of being non-adjacent, we are able to make sure that they get different colors in our greedy strategy. So we are going to devise an ordering of the vertices so that these two vertices definitely get different colors. Right? So how would we do that? So we need something more. So let us imagine a stronger property of a spanning tree. Supposing I tell you that I have a spanning tree that looks like this. There are two vertices. These are my two special vertices that I want them to be non-adjacent. So U and V are not adjacent in the graph G. Okay? Remember, we have two things here. We have the graph G and we have a spanning tree of the graph G. Okay? And now let's suppose that these are also leaves of my graph, of my tree. So suppose for the time being that U and V are leaves of the spanning tree. Okay? What does that mean? That the rest of the spanning tree is all contained here, right? All the vertices of the graph except for R, U, and V are in this part. This is T minus R minus U minus V. Okay. In fact, let me include R in this. Let me include R in this here. So let me look at T minus U minus V. Okay. What does this mean? How can we have a spanning tree that contains all the vertices of the graph but does not contain U and V? Under what condition does this happen?
So I think it happens only when U and V their degree 1 vertices in G.
No, that is not true. U and V, I can make U and V adjacent to things here. That is not a problem.
Sir, can you repeat the question?
So I want the graph to have a spanning tree that spans all the vertices except U and V. When does this happen?
So the question is not quite clear to me. Can you repeat once again?
Okay, I want a tree in my graph that spans all the vertices of the graph except U and V. Under what conditions will this happen?
Well, the graph is two connected, right?
It shouldn't be
Uh,
cutted, just
So G minus U and G minus V are both connected graphs, right?
Right, but G minus U minus V could be disconnected, right?
Okay. Yeah.
But you are right, you are on the right track. So what do you need? What is the property you need?
three connected. Uh,
Sure, three connected would help, but I want a weaker property. I don't want G minus U minus V to be disconnected, right? So the graph is two
Yeah.
connected, but I also want G minus U minus V to be connected. Okay? So we need G minus U minus,
In particular, U comma V is not a two vertex cut.
right, U comma V is not a two vertex cut.
Yeah. But that doesn't mean that G is 3 connected.
Right, it is a weaker property. If G is 3
Weaker
connected,
property.
that would be already true.
Yeah.
So another point we could have made here is that we are already done for 3 connected graphs. Okay, but let me not go into that right now, right? So what we are going to need, we want two vertices that are leaves of the spanning tree, and we want the graph to be connected even after deleting these two vertices. Okay?
Yeah. Then if G minus U minus V is connected, then G minus U minus V will have a spanning tree, and that spanning tree will not span U and V.
Exactly. Exactly.
So
Okay.
basically, the only possibility is that U comma V is not a two vertex cut.
Exactly. So let me call a Loa spanning tree. I'll just introduce a terminology to make things easier. I don't want to repeat the whole definition. So what is a Loa spanning tree? It is a spanning tree T. Let's call it a rooted spanning tree with root R. Okay, we can make some vertex the root, such that we have this structure R, U, and V. Okay, where U and V are leaves of the tree, and second property is G minus U minus V. Well, actually that is not required. U and V are leaves of the tree, and second property is that U is not adjacent to V in the graph G. Okay.
So is it the definition of Loa spanning tree?
Yeah, I just invented it. It's not a standard definition, right? So within a proof, if I define something, that is just to make things easier for that discussion.
Okay.
Right? So this is no standard terminology. Okay.
So he defined it only for this proof.
Well, I don't know. I don't think he called it Loa spanning tree.
No, no, but he,
but if you read his proof, then you realize that this is what he's talking about. So yeah,
okay, okay.
yeah, it would be somewhat arrogant of him to call it Loa spanning tree. Okay, fine. But is the concept clear, right? So we want the spanning tree. In fact, you can even forget about the root if you like. Okay, I mean, root is not really important. What you want is there to be two leaves in the tree, and you want these two vertices to not be adjacent in the graph G, right? So this is not an edge in the graph G, because then if you have such a thing, you can take this to be your root vertex, and you have a Loa spanning tree as I've defined it. Okay.
No, but it is not clear to me why UV cannot be an edge in G.
We want that. We want that property. It is a part of the definition,
Okay, okay, okay.
right?
Okay, okay.
Okay. So this is the point I want to make is if the graph G, if G has a Loa spanning tree, then you don't need more than delta colors. Is that part clear?
Yes, because if G has a Loa spanning tree, then if I consider the root of the tree, it has two leaves, U and V, which are not adjacent and which are also not adjacent in G also.
Right.
So
Okay.
basically, what can happen? I can get a proper coloring where U and V will get the same color.
Right. How would you construct that ordering? What is your ordering going to be?
So ordering is so first. What I will do in my ordering? The first vertex will be U,
Right.
and the
Put
second
U.
vertex will be V,
Exactly. And
and the
now what
other
will you
will
do?
follow. Yeah, then we are done basically.
No, I want you to complete the ordering. You're
So
not done yet. Yeah.
okay, okay, okay. So I am completing the ordering. So in the ordering, first vertex is U, second vertex is V,
Mm.
and after that we know that whatever remains is the graph G, the spanning tree of the graph G minus U minus V,
Right.
and
Exactly.
and since G minus U minus V is connected,
Mm.
its spanning tree exists, and for
Right.
that
It
spanning
is
tree,
this tree. Right.
yeah, yeah, and for this tree we will remove the leaves in an arbitrary order.
Right.
It doesn't matter in which order we are removing the leaves of this tree.
Right. What will be your last vertex?
Last vertex will be R.
Exactly. Exactly.
Exactly.
Right. So we will get an ordering like this, and this will be constructed by removing leaves
Yeah.
of T minus U minus V.
Means we have to be careful that we have to remove the vertex R at the last time, not
Exactly.
before.
The vertex R has to be removed at the end.
Exactly.
Right?
Then we are done. Then we are done.
Exactly. Exactly. Because when you do this, you will get the same color for U and the same color for one. So that will be color one. Both U and V will get color one. And then you will use all the colors like you, whatever you like here. The point is for each of these vertices, there will always be a neighbor that is not colored. because it will be in the spanning tree T minus U minus V, right? Because you're always removing leaves. So you will never need the delta plus 1 color. When you come to this vertex, the degree could be delta, but the good news is that two neighbors U and V have the same color. So by pigeonhole principle, you have used at most delta minus 1 colors among the neighbors of the root. So the delta colors will still suffice. You don't need the last color, delta plus 1, right? You'll get a delta coloring of the graph. Okay?
But sir, I still have a question. So this entire argument means I am confused with this argument, but the entire argument is based on the existence of a lower spanning tree, right?
Right, exactly.
But what is the guarantee that a lower spanning tree will exist by
Right,
two
we'll,
connected
we'll,
graphs?
we'll do that. We'll do that. Right, but this is the point I want to convey. Right. So is everybody convinced about this proof? If the graph is a lower spanning tree, then we are done. Okay.
Okay, so basically now will you show that any two connected graph has a lower spanning tree?
Right. Exactly.
Okay. And then our proof is complete.
Exactly.
It means the entire proof of Brooks theorem is complete.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Okay. So the point is, when we apply greedy coloring heuristic to this ordering, we don't need more than delta G colors. Okay, and therefore it proves that the chromatic number is at most delta G. Okay, good. So now lower spanning tree is turns out we can do something slightly more graph theoretical in some sense. I mean, spanning tree is already very graph theoretical, but let me make it even simpler to think about. So we don't need to think about spanning trees. It turns out that we can think about a somewhat simpler graph theoretical property that is equivalent to having such a spanning tree. Okay? And it's almost obvious when I explain it to you, right? So what we want in the graph is something like this. We want a structure like this, right? This is a subgraph. This is K12. Okay, and it looks like a cherry. So let me call this a Brooks cherry. What is a Brooks cherry? It is a K12 induced subgraph of G. What does induce mean? Induce means that these two are not adjacent. Okay, because then it would not be an induced subgraph if they were adjacent in the graph. Right? So induced subgraph simply means UV is not an edge of the graph. And on top of that, I want the graph G minus U minus V to be connected. Okay? And you can think of this R as the center of your cherry. Right? So when I remove the other two vertices, the remaining graph should still be connected. Okay?
So it is the definition of Brooks cherry, right?
Right. It is a definition of Brooks cherry that also I invented. Okay. So it is a subgraph of the graph. Yeah, go ahead.
So basically it is an induced K12 where if you delete the two vertices other than the center, graph will be connected.
Exactly. It is an induced K12. When you delete the two vertices that are not the center, the graph is connected. Okay. Good. So I'll give you a small do-it-yourself exercise, which is really easy, I think. The graph G, so you can assume that G is a two connected graph if you require that condition. What I want you to prove is that G has a lower spanning tree if and only if G has a Brooks cherry. Okay? Fine? I think one direction you can already see. If the graph is a Brooks cherry, then it is clear that it has a lower spanning tree. The other direction is not difficult either. Okay? So what we will show
The
is
forward
that
direction, the forward direction is also quite easy.
it is easy. Yeah, it is
It's
easy.
easy actually. Yeah, I mean, it's easy to see. Yeah.
Good. All right. So what we will actually show is that every two connected graph, except for some graphs, has a Brooks cherry. So every two connected graph has a Brooks cherry. Can somebody tell me what are graphs that don't have Brooks cherry? What are the two connected graphs that don't have a Brooks cherry?
I think complete graphs is one such example.
Complete graphs, okay. Complete graphs definitely don't have a Brooks cherry because you need two vertices that are not adjacent. So you don't have that in complete graphs. Except complete graphs. What else?
Triangle. Oh,
Triangle
okay. It's a
doesn't have
complete
Brooks cherry.
graph. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, but can you generalize it in another way?
Okay, okay. Yeah.
So complete graphs, and there is another class that is easy to think of.
Cycles.
Cycles. Cycles don't have Brooks cherry, right? You take any vertex, you delete the two neighbors of that vertex, the graph will be disconnected. Right?
Yeah, but how then it becomes Brooks cherry? Because for Brooks cherry, G minus U minus we should be connected, right?
Right. It is not a Brooks cherry. That's what I'm saying. Cycles don't have a Brooks cherry.
Okay, cycles don't have Brooks cherry. Okay,
Right.
but
Exactly.
complete graphs have a. Okay, so both
Complete graphs also don't have a Brooks cherry.
Brooks cherry. Okay, yeah.
Okay?
Both complete graphs and cycles don't have Brooks cherry,
Exactly.
and I think they are the only exceptions
That's right. That's what we are going to prove.
to prove. Okay.
Okay? So this is, but what I want to convince you about before we prove this is that once we prove this, Brooks theorem is proved.
Yeah, because by the do it yourself, if it has a Brooks cherry, it has a Lova spanning tree, if and only because
Right.
these two connected. And if it has a
Right.
Lova spanning tree, then you already argued that we have a delta G coloring.
Exactly.
So we are done. This we
Okay?
are done.
So this implies Brooks theorem that we have already proved. Are there any questions or concerns regarding this implication? If there are, right now is a good time to ask.
So the only thing we have to show is that every two connected graph other than complete graph and cycles have a Brooks cherry.
Yeah.
Okay. So is it a theorem or simply a small result?
Uh, you can call it a lemma.
Okay.
Okay, so let's prove this lemma. Every two connected graph has a Brooks cherry, except for these guys. Okay, good. So let's say G is a two connected graph that is not complete graph and not a cycle. Okay. You can also assume that the graph is simple. Right? Yeah, let me actually put simple here itself because we don't need to prove it for multi-graphs. If we can color the simple graph, then the multi-graph is also colored. Okay. Good. So let's start. So we are going to make use of some of your assignment problems and some of your do-it-yourself exercises. I will tell you which ones we are using, when we are using them. Okay. There are two possibilities, first of all. Either your two connected graph has a vertex of degree at least 3 that is not universal, or it doesn't have such a vertex, right? So case 1, each vertex of degree at least 3 is universal. Okay, this is from assignment 2 problem 3 part C.
Okay, so here we are taking help of assignment problems.
Yeah. Okay.
Assignment problem part 3. Okay, fine.
Yeah. So
So
if
basically,
each
degree of
vertex,
every vertex is either 1, 2, or n minus 1.
yeah, that's right.
Is either 1, 2, or n minus 1.
Yeah,
It must be.
but we don't even need, we'll just directly use the result, right? So in assignment 2, problem 3, part C, you characterized all such graphs. And what was the characterization? You got the complete graphs, you got the cycles, but we know our graph is not a complete graph, it is not a cycle. So it has to be the third possibility. The third possibility you got is like this. It is a K2n plus one edge joining the two vertices in the smaller color class. I'll explain what this means. Right, so let's look at n is at least 2, right? So you have k2n, so this is k22, and then you add one edge joining two vertices that have the same color in the bipartite graph, right? If this is black, this is white, white, and black, then you add one edge joining these two black vertices. The next graph was something like this. You have a K23 and you add one edge joining these two black vertices. Okay, so these are your graphs. If you solve the assignment problem correctly, you would have shown that the graph is either a cycle or a complete graph, or it is this kind of a graph. Okay. In these graphs, can somebody see a Brooks cherry? So this is a good time to exercise the definition, right? To make sure that you understand the definition. Can you see a Brooks cherry in these graphs?
I think this we can take the central vertex as the. So in a Brooks cherry means there will be three vertices R, U, V, and U, V
Yeah.
will be non-adjacent.
Hmm.
So
Okay. So can you
in
show
the
me in this
first case,
example?
I think it
Uh-huh.
will be. In the
Okay.
first case, I think it will be something.
There's only one choice for U and V, right? In the first case. These are the only two non-adjacent vertices,
Yeah.
right? So this is your R.
Okay, I saw the Brooks cherry. So basically, the central vertex could be any of the vertices in the larger color class, A- and the vertex of the smaller color class will correspond to the vertices of the U and V.
I think you mixed up there slightly. The
Yeah,
center
it's
will
the
be the
opposite
smaller
thing.
color class.
Yeah.
Right. The center vertex will be one of the two black vertices, as I've indicated. And then you take any two neighbors apart from the other black vertex as U and V. Okay? So all of these graphs have a Brooks cherry. Okay? So if your graph has this property that each vertex of degree at least 3 is universal, then you are done. Okay? By the assignment problem and by this simple observation.
So basically, here G minus U minus V is connected. If you
Yeah,
just see,
exactly.
just say Brooks cherry. Okay,
Because by
fine.
observation. Exactly. Okay? So we are done in this case. So now consider the second case, which
So
is not
basically,
case.
any vertex of a smaller color class and any two vertex of the larger color class constitute Brooks cherry.
That's it. That's it.
Okay, okay, fine.
So now the second case is we have a vertex of degree at least 3 that is not universal. There exists a vertex V of degree at least 3 that is not universal. Okay? So let's consider this case. So I want to delete this vertex and look at the remaining graph and somehow find a Brooks cherry in the graph G. Okay? So actually, let's consider two possibilities. Either after deleting this vertex, the remaining graph is still too connected. Okay, this turns out to be an easy case. Supposing the graph is too connected after deleting this vertex. Okay. So there are some vertices that are neighbors of this vertex in the graph G.
So what
And
is
then-
vertex V here? What is
Sorry?
V here? What is vertex V? Vertex V. So is it a degree at least 3 vertex that is a universal?
Exactly.
Okay.
Right?
Fine.
So V is some such vertex. Okay. So there are going to be some vertices that are neighbors of the vertex V.
But I think G is two
Uh-huh.
connected, right?
Yeah. So
So G minus V will be one connected. You have written two connected.
no, that is the assumption. So this is a case. So it could be not two connected. It will be at least one connected,
Okay, yeah.
right? But it could still be two connected, right? I mean that is also a possibility. So I'm going to consider those two possibilities separately.
Okay. So the first possibility is that G minus V is two connected, and the second is that G minus V is not two connected.
Exactly. G
Is
minus
it-
V may or may not be two connected.
Okay. So if it is not two connected, then it will be one connected. That will be
Right.
considered in the second case.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. Fine.
Okay. So these are the neighbors of the vertex V, and these are all the vertices of the graph that are not neighbors of the vertex V and not the vertex V. Okay. Because this vertex is not universal, both of these are non-empty sets, right? This is not empty because the graph is connected, and this is not empty because the vertex is not universal. So there has to be some vertex which is not a neighbor of this vertex. Can somebody tell me where is a Brooks cherry here? We'll finish the proof in another 5 minutes. So can you see a Brooks cherry in this example?
So both the sets are non-empty because the neighborhood of V is non-empty because V has degree
Yeah,
at
I
least
already
one.
said the reasoning. So let's try to wrap it up. Right? So I just said they are non-empty because the graph is connected, and this is not a universal vertex. Right? If you don't agree with one of those, then please tell me. Okay. So now, how do you find a Brooks cherry here?
So
Yeah, go ahead, Krishna.
uh, take a vertex in neighborhood of V.
Okay.
One second. Yeah, it should have a neighbor with the right side part of the graph.
Right.
V and W are not connected.
Right.
I mean, they are by a vertex. I mean,
Yeah.
and
Okay. So what's your Brooks cherry?
my idea was U, V, and W.
Exactly. UVW forms a Brooks cherry. Right. So because the graph is connected, if you look at there will be some vertex on the right side, W, which is a neighbor of some vertex, U, that is a neighbor of the vertex V, right? Otherwise, the graph will not even be connected. So you take any such vertex W on the right side, and now UVW, they form a Brooks cherry, right? Why? Because of our assumption G minus V is two connected, it implies that G minus V minus W is connected. Right? This is a two connected graph, and I am removing one vertex, so I still have a connected graph. Okay? And V and W are not adjacent by the way we chose W. W is the vertex that is not neighbor of V. Okay? Are there any questions or concerns regarding this case? This is case 2.1. Maybe let me not put this.
So can we again repeat the choice of W? How you chose the vertex W?
Well, because the graph is connected, there is some vertex in this set on the right hand side, which is a neighbor of some vertex on the left hand side, which is the neighbors of the vertex V. Do you agree? there has to be some vertex W which is directly joined to some vertex U by an edge.
Okay, and U is the neighbor of V.
Right, right.
Okay, yeah, I got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Okay. So that is case 2.1. We have found a Brooks cherry. We are done.
But why G minus V minus W will be connected? It is not clear to me.
G minus V is two connected.
Yeah, G minus V is two
That is
connected.
our
Yeah.
assumption. So I'm deleting one vertex from a two connected graph.
Okay. I got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Okay. So the next case is when G minus V is not two connected. So I know I'm already over time, but I want to finish this proof because this is the end of colorings and we'll start matchings next lecture. So if you can stay back for another 4-5 minutes, that would be great. Otherwise, you can view it on YouTube. Okay. So now let's consider the case where the graph G minus V is not two connected. Okay. We still need to find a Brooks cherry in this case. So if it is not two connected, it means that it has a block decomposition, right? With some properties. So let's consider a block decomposition. So you'll have some cut vertices, you'll have some blocks, right? Stuff like this. Okay, this is the graph G minus V. Okay. I claim that even in this case, we can find a Brooks cherry. Okay. And we are going to use results from lecture 12, do it yourself problems number 3 and number 5. Okay. I'll tell you exactly how they are being used. You can go and check them after the lecture on Piazza if you haven't done it before. Okay. So, does everybody remember the concept of an end block? Does everybody remember what an end block? Yeah, go ahead.
It is a leaf node of a block tree.
Exactly. So this is an end block, this is an end block, and this is an end block in our example. Okay. So G minus V has at least two end blocks. This is because of do-it-yourself problem number 3. Every tree has at least two leaves. So the graph G minus V will have at least two end blocks. Every tree on at least two vertices. Okay. So we have a vertex V. We have a graph that is two connected. We removed one vertex V, and now we have a graph that is not two connected. So that is something we had explored in problem number 5. According to this problem, V has at least one neighbor. Actually, let me write it differently. For each end block B of G minus V, B has an internal vertex. Does everybody remember what an internal vertex is?
A vertex which is not a cut vertex.
Exactly. That is a neighbor of V. For every end block, you will be able to find an internal vertex. So if this is my end block B1, it will have some vertex U, which is a neighbor of V. Okay, V is the vertex we had deleted. This will happen for every single end block. So if there are 3 end blocks, for each end block, you'll be able to find U1, U2, and U3.
Then I think V1, U2 will be a Brooks cherry.
Exactly. So the claim is that V U1 U2 is a Brooks cherry.
So it is a Brooks cherry in G.
With V as the center. Yeah, Brooks cherry in G.
Brooks cherry in G. Yeah, in G.
Okay. So this is all we need to prove. That these 3 vertices, I can pick 2 end blocks, B1 and B2, and the vertex V, and these 2 vertices, U1 and U2. which are internal vertices of these two end blocks that are neighbors of V. And I claim that this is a Brooks cherry.
So we only need to show that G minus E1 minus E2 is connected.
That is right. So we need to show, right. So to
Anyway,
show,
E1 and E2 cannot be adjacent.
right. So to show that G minus U1 minus U2 is connected. Exactly. They are not adjacent because they are internal vertices in two different
Exactly,
blocks.
exactly. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
This
Good.
follows because the blocks are too connected.
Blocks are too connected, right? So what that means is you can delete U1 from the block, and this will still be connected, and it will be connected to the rest of the graph using a cut vertex. Exactly, right? So why is this true? Bi minus ui is connected since blocks are too connected. Okay, two connected or K2. In both cases, the argument is okay. Okay, and secondly,
So basically, B1 minus E1 will be connected, B2 minus E2 will be connected. That means G minus E1 minus E2 is connected.
exactly,
Get done.
right? So because these are connected, this implies that the graph G minus V minus U1 minus U2 is connected. What about V? Now I want to put the vertex V back into the picture. Notice that we are talking about the blocks of G minus V. So I have to remove the vertex V as well, right?
No, but I have a question. So why have you written G minus V? It will be simply G minus E1 minus E2.
No, you tell me why. I want to say that you can put the vertex V back in the picture and you will still have a connected graph. But I don't want to jump to that statement, right? You see, we are removing the vertex V and now we are looking at the block decomposition. So when you remove the internal vertices in the end blocks U1 and U2, the graph will still be connected. But now I want to put the vertex V back into the graph and say that this is still a connected graph.
Yeah, it is very.
Because
It is actually very easy.
Okay, can who was it? Was it Kapil? Can you say
it's
that?
because Vs degree greater than equal to 3, right?
Exactly. Because the vertex V has degree at least 3, it will have some neighbor different from U1 and U2. And so it will connect to the remaining graph. Right? Do you agree?
Okay, yeah, I got it, got it. Yeah, fine.
Since V has degree
Yeah,
at
basically
least
because the
3.
blocks we are taking are in G minus V. So we can say that G
Exactly.
minus V minus E1 is connected. But when you put back the vertex V, it is at least a
Exactly.
neighbor U3 different from E1, U2. So basically G
Exactly.
minus will be connected. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that's it. Okay. So we have found 3 vertices and we have shown that these form a cherry, a Brooks cherry in the graph, right? And the only thing we had to really argue was that when you delete U1 and U2, the graph is connected. And in order to prove that, we used our knowledge of non-separable graphs or two connected graphs and the block decomposition. Okay. Done. So in all cases, we have found a Brooks cherry, and because we have a Brooks cherry, we have proved Brooks theorem. Okay. So I'm sorry I went about 12 minutes over time, but this is the end of the module, and on Monday we will start matchings.
So from the next class from Monday we will start matchings, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So what will you do there in matchings?
Hmm, let's see. We will prove Hall's theorem. Eventually, we'll prove Tutt's theorem and everything. So we'll characterize graphs that have perfect matching. That will be one of our main focus.
We'll characterize graphs that are perfect matchings.
Yeah,
Okay. So will you prove Tart's one-factor theorem, something like that?
yeah, we'll prove that.
Okay.
But anyways, before we move on to matchings, if there are any questions or concerns regarding this proof, this is a good time to ask them. Right?
So sir, I have a question. So my question is, so suppose suppose G is a graph
Hmm.
which is not too connected. So G has a block decomposition.
Hmm.
There are some blocks. So if we remove at most one internal vertex, if we remove at most one internal vertex from each block, then I think that G will be connected, right?
That's right. Yeah,
Okay. Means that I'm just asking because here
yeah,
what we have done, we have removed U1 and U2.
Yeah, that's right.
And we have
If you
only
remove-
taken 2 blocks beyond
Yeah,
V2.
exactly.
But I am saying instead of 2 blocks, if we remove one internal vertex from every block, then also the graph will be connected.
That's right. That is correct.
So am I right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Am I?
Every block is two connected, so you can remove one internal vertex from each of them if there is such an internal vertex, right? And then you will still have a connected graph because the cut vertices will connect the remaining stuff.
But we cannot remove 2 internal vertices from a single block. Then that will create a problem.
Then we are not sure. Then you will need the block to be three connected for that to be true.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Then we need 3 connected. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So actually means basically the concept of Brooks theory and Lower spanning tree is actually very new to me.
Okay. Yeah. Well, Loas's paper is basically where I've taken the whole proof from. This is not the proof from Bondi and Murthy, which I think is. I find Loas's proof to be easier to understand and in some sense somewhat more fundamental. Because in Mondimurti, the proof uses breadth first search trees and depth first search trees, and that to me is a little bit more algorithmic.
So basically the proof is very nice. The
Yeah,
proof is
yeah.
really nice. Yeah.